معقولة وفاعلة. في عندنا 25 أذار نعتبره خط أحمر، نحن ما حدا يلعب معه.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. The parliamentary Future bloc renews its call for the formation of a neutral government and commends the stance of President Michel Sleiman. UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon Derek Plummy urges positive engagement with Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam to form a new cabinet. And the trial of Egypt's ousted President Hamad Morsi is adjourned until February the 1st due to bad weather. The parliamentary Future bloc renews its call for the formation of a neutral government while commending the stance of President Michel Sleiman. In its weekly statement, the bloc called on Sleiman and Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam to form a non-partisan cabinet and enable it to tackle Lebanon's security, social and economic problems. It also commended Sleiman's position in favor of forming a non-political cabinet, a move strongly opposed by March 8 parties. Lebanon is struggling to form a cabinet 9 months after the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Mikati. The deadlock over the formation of a cabinet has been coupled with lack of political consensus over the election of a new president as Sleiman's term expires on May the 25th. The March 14 General Secretariat renews its assertion that eliminating illegitimate arms will lead to stability in the country. After its weekly meeting, the group voiced its constant readiness to mobilize and confront the plot to incite sectarianism among the Lebanese, as had recently happened in the northern city of Tripoli. They expressed their commitment to liberating Lebanon from the occupation of illegitimate arms through Lebanese civil resistance. Addressing government formation efforts, it stated that a new cabinet can only be built on principles stipulated in the Baghdad Declaration, calling for Lebanon to keep a distance from regional conflicts and to implement international resolutions. United Nations Special Coordinator for Lebanon Derek Plummy stresses the international community's keenness on the formation of an effective government in Lebanon. Following talks with Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam, Plummy urges all parties to engage positively with him to ensure that a government is in place without further delay, and stresses the United Nations is engaged in assisting Lebanon on all of its fronts. The Council of Maronite Bishops urges the Lebanese to protect civil peace and prevent Lebanon from turning into a battleground. They say the failure to find a solution to political, security and economic crisis calls for holding on to the National Pact, which is the basis of Lebanon's existence, as it embraces everyone based on unity and equal participation in power. The Maronite bishops lamented that Premier-designate Tamam Slam has failed to form the new cabinet as the presidential elections loom. They urged politicians and all lawmakers to assume their responsibilities and form a cabinet that can confront all challenges. They also say that officials should make serious preparations for electing a new president on time to revive the country and its constitutional institutions. Military Tribunal Judge Imad Zain calls for the death penalty against more than 12 suspects for planting bombs in the eastern Bekaa Valley. Zain made the request in an indictment he issued against 14 Lebanese and Syrian suspects, 7 of whom are in custody. The judge issued arrest warrants against the remaining 7 and search warrants against another 7 suspects whose identities are not known. They are accused of planting bombs and targeting cars and security forces on the road that leads to the Masna border crossing. Several people were killed and injured in strings of attacks that have targeted convoys belonging to Hezbollah in the eastern Bekaa region. Lebanon detains 9 inmates allegedly involved in prison threat videos of blackmail and inciting sectarian strife at 2 jails. Military prosecutor Sa'ir ordered the arrest of 5 prisoners from Lebanon's largest Rumiyah jail for fabricating fake videos aimed at provoking sectarian violence. Sa'id also ordered the arrest of 4 inmates at the Kibbe jail in the northern city of Tripoli for blackmailing the brother of a fellow Alawite inmate into sending them money. Investigation is ongoing into another video purportedly showing Shiite prisoners threatening Sunnis with aggression if Alawites in Lebanon continue to be targeted. Two Swedish journalists reported missing in Syria since November are freed. Diplomatic sources and the International Committee for the Red Cross say one of the captives was transferred from Arsel to the Red Cross offices in Beirut early this morning. Diplomatic sources say the other journalist was freed on Saturday. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif is set to visit Beirut with a loaded agenda next Monday. The probe into the attack on Iran's embassy in Beirut, in addition to other issues linked to Syria's war, are among the issues to discuss with Lebanese officials. A ministry source says Zarif will arrive on a one-day visit to meet Lebanese officials and discuss the investigation into the attack on Iran's embassy and Masjid al-Masjid's case. The November 19 double suicide bombing left scores of casualties, including Tehran's cultural attaché. A high-ranking Lebanese source adds that Zarif will meet with President Michel Sleiman, Prime Minister Najib Mikati, Prime Minister-designate Tamal Sam, and his counterpart Adnan Mansour and Hezbollah chief Said Hassan Nasrallah. Fighters from several Syrian rebel brigades seized the headquarters of the jihadist Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant in the northern city of Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says fighters from several Islamist rebel brigades took control of the Children's Hospital in the Qadi Askar district, which is the headquarters of the ISIL in the city. The observatory said it was unclear what had happened to hundreds of ISIL fighters who had been inside the headquarters. Citing initial reports, it stated that the rebels freed dozens of people held prisoners in the ISIL headquarters. ISIL has been fighting a coalition of moderate and Islamist rebels angered by a spate of abuses by the jihadists who have been accused of kidnapping and killing civilians and rival rebels. Syria has started moving chemical weapons materials out of the country in a crucial phase of internationally backed disarmament program that has been delayed by war and technical problems. The joint mission overseeing the disarmament, the UN and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, says the materials have been moved from two sites to the port of Latakia and then loaded onto a Danish commercial vessel. Syria agreed to abandon its chemical weapons by June under a deal proposed by Russia and agreed with the United States after an August 21 sarin gas attack that Western nations blamed on President Bashar al-Assad's forces, but Damascus blames rebels for the attack.
The vessel has been accompanied by naval escorts provided by Denmark and Norway, as well as the Syrian Arab Republic. This movement initiates the process of transfer of chemical materials from Syria to locations outside its territory for destruction. The vessel has now left the port of Latakia for international waters. It will remain at sea awaiting the arrival of additional priority chemical materials at the port. Maritime security is being provided by naval escorts from the People's Republic of China, Denmark, Norway, and the Russian Federation. At this stage, there's a process of several phases by which material will be loaded as more and more material arrive at the port of Latakia. I think we might give a final number at that point. I'll see whether we can give some interim number at this stage, but I suspect that we'll give a final number once all of the material has been loaded on.
And coming up next, former Venezuelan beauty queen Monica Spear and her ex-husband are killed in Puerto Cabello in Venezuela. Stay tuned for the story. Welcome back. The judge in the trial of Egypt's ousted president has ordered the hearings adjourned until February 1st after bad weather prevented bringing Mohamed Morsi into court. Reports say the helicopter that was to fly Morsi from a prison near the Mediterranean city of Alexandria to the court in Cairo could not take off because of fog. Morsi and 14 others are on trial for inciting the killing of protesters outside the Cairo presidential palace in December of 2012, when at least 10 people were killed and hundreds wounded. It is one of 3 trials that Morsi faces. Charges in all 3 carry the death penalty. His downfall has led to some of the worst violence in Egypt's modern history in the form of protests by his supporters, a bloody police crackdown on those supporters, and attacks on the police and churches. The Turkish government has fired 16 provincial police chiefs as it deepened its purge of law enforcement amid a corruption scandal that has ensnared key allies of Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Among the police chiefs dismissed in an interior ministry decree are those from several big cities and the provinces of the same name, including Ankara, Izmir, Antalya, and Diyarbakir. Reports say the deputy chief of national security was also fired. This comes a day after the government fired 350 police officers in Ankara. Masked gunmen remain in control of Iraq's Fallujah, even as traffic police return to the city streets after a jihadist group urged Sunnis to keep fighting the Shiite-led government. Fallujah and parts of the Anbar provincial capital of Ramadi have been outside government hands for days now. Earlier today, 2 areas of Fallujah saw brief clashes and shelling, but it was not immediately clear who was involved in the fighting. Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is urging all those who joined al-Qaeda and now face a siege by his troops in the western Anbar province to give up their struggle, hinting of a possible pardon if the militants give up the fight. Maliki says he is calling on those who were lured to be part of the terrorism machine led by al-Qaeda to return to reason. If they do so, he says his government will open a new page to settle their cases. And now for news around the world in brief. Authorities in the United Kingdom cordoned off flooded marshes to remove 4 U.S. Air Force's crewmen who died in the helicopter crash. The Pavehawk helicopter slammed into the coastal marshes of eastern England during a training mission on Tuesday. The military says the helicopter crashed near Salthouse on the Norfolk coast. 9 people are killed in a fire on an overnight train near Mumbai. The blaze, which comes less than a fortnight after 26 people were killed in a similar fire tragedy, happened shortly after the train left Mumbai for the northern city of Dehradun. The cause of the blaze is unknown yet. All 50 of America's states recorded temperatures below freezing as bitterly cold air gripped the country. Airlines canceled more than 4,400 flights as extreme cold in the U.S. Midwest and Northeast froze fuel lines to airplanes and posed exposure hazards for employees working on the tarmac. Former Venezuelan beauty queen Monica Spear and her ex-husband were shot dead, and their 5-year-old daughter was wounded after they resisted robbers who attacked their car. Monica Spear, 29, and Thomas Berry, 39, were killed near Puerto Cabello, the country's main port, while on a journey to the capital of Caracas. Investigators say their car's tires have been punctured by a sharp object placed on the highway. Robbers then moved on to a stricken vehicle and apparently opened fire when the family attempted to lock themselves inside. Spear, who won Miss Venezuela in 2004 before becoming a soap opera actress, and Berry, a British citizen, suffered multiple wounds. Their 5-year-old daughter, Maya, was shot in the leg. Police in Puerto Cabello arrested 5 suspects, some under age 18. The 2022 World Cup to take place in Qatar will not be held in June and July. FIFA Secretary General Jérôme Valquet says the event might take place between the 15th of November and the end of December because that is when the weather is more favorable. FIFA Vice President Jim Boyce, however, told reporters he was shocked and surprised by Valquet's comments, as the decision was yet to be made by the FIFA Executive Committee. In October, the sport's governing body delayed making a decision on whether to play the tournament in the winter, saying it was setting up a consultation process to decide when the finals should be held. Valquet's surprise announcement comes more than 3 years after Qatar was originally awarded the tournament in December of 2010, ahead of the U.S., South Korea, Japan, and Australia. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. The parliamentary future bloc renews its call for the formation of a neutral government and commends the stance of President Michel Sleiman. UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Derek Plummy, urges positive engagement with Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam to form a new cabinet. And the trial of Egypt's ousted President Mohamed Morsi is adjourned until February the 1st due to bad weather. Those are your Wednesday headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Lena Tamim, wishing you all a good rest of the week.
نحن بحاجة إلى حكومة مسؤولة وفاعلة.
في عندنا 25 أذار بعتبره خط أحمر، نحن ما حدا يلعب معنا.